Let me tell you about a man who was tortured in North Korean labor camps, nearly worked to death, and then 3 decades later walked straight back into the lion's den to shake hands with the dictator who imprisoned him. No, this isn't a Hollywood script. This is the actual story of Reverend Myung Moon. And it's one of the most audacious peace gambits of the 20th century that almost nobody talks about. And here's the thing, it worked. Well, sort of. Just not in a way you would expect, because while Western media focused on his mass wedding ceremonies and his controversial methods, Reverend Moon and his wife, Dr. Hak Jahan, were quietly building an infrastructure for peace that reached from North Korean car factories to ballet companies to interfaith summits at the United Nations. Their goal? Nothing less than the reunification of Korea and world peace through what they called true love and true families. How did they try to do it? That's where it gets interesting. Let's rewind to 1946. Korea has just been liberated from Japanese occupation. The peninsula is divided. There is chaos everywhere. A young Christian evangelical named Myung Moon decides the best place to preach his message is Pyongyang, under communist control. You can imagine how that went. He is arrested, sent to Hungnong labor camp, a brutal facility where prisoners are worked until they collapse. Most do not survive for a year. Reverend Moon survives 2.5 years. And here's what's extraordinary. Witnesses says he spent that time inspiring other prisoners, organizing prayers, keeping faith alive in a place designed to break the human spirit. He built a spiritual community inside a death camp. Think about the conviction that takes. That's not ordinary faith, that's something deeper. Unyielding purpose forged through suffering. And so when UN forces bombed the camp in 1950, he escaped, but he didn't flee alone. He carried a disciple with a broken leg for hundreds of kilometers through the war-torn countryside. Eventually, in the southern city Busan, as a refugee, he built his first church. Out of discarded military ration boxes and mud, literal scraps. And he decided that this tiny handmade chapel would one day be the foundation of a global movement. By 1954, he founded the Holy Spirit Association for the Unification of World Christianity. By 1957, 30 churches across Korea. By 1960, he married Dr. Hak Jahan, herself a North Korean escapee, and together they launched the now famous blessing ceremonies that would marry thousands across nations and faiths. The scale of ambition, staggering. But before we go further, who were these people really? Reverend Moon was a man of contradictions, the kind that often define great visionaries. A fierce anti-communist, yes, understandable after years of torture. But in his youth, he defended communists as good people dedicated to saving Korea. He preached forgiveness and he practiced it. After World War II, many Koreans wanted revenge against Japanese officials. He argued for mercy, even helping ensure some returned home safely to Japan. Forgiveness wasn't theory for him, it was policy. And then there's Dr. Hak Jahan. Born in what became North Korea, her story reads like a parable of grace under pressure. During her family's escape south, they were stopped by armed soldiers. One wrong move meant execution. Little Hak Jahan began to sing a Southern Korean folk song she learned as a child. That song saved them. The soldiers lowered their guns and let them pass. And she would later say that that moment taught her what peace truly means, how fragile it really is, and how much depends on one human choice in a single moment. Together, the Moons realized something very powerful. You can't build peace with prayer alone. You need infrastructure, and that's exactly what they began to construct. So let's fast forward to 1991. The Cold War is ending. Korea is still divided. Reverend Moon is now a global figure, praised by some, criticized by others, but undeniably influential. And then he announces he's going back to North Korea. His advisors are horrified. South Korean intelligence begs him not to go. The regime that tortured him knows exactly who he is, and yet he goes. And somehow he gets the meeting. Picture it. The former prisoner sitting across from Kim Il-sung, the very dictator who once had him enslaved. They smiled in photos. They talked about reunification. They made agreements for joint economic projects. Reverend Moon is even allowed to visit his hometown to bow before his parents' grave. That meeting wasn't symbolic, it led to tangible results. His group, founded Pyonghwa Motors, the first privately owned car manufacturer in North Korea. They opened tourism ventures, resorts, some of which would later host events like the 2018 Winter Olympics. And when Reverend Moon died in 2012, the North Korean government, yes, that very government, awarded him their National Reunification Prize. Imagine that. The man they once tried to destroy, honored now as a hero of unity. So how did Reverend Moon do it? Because this wasn't luck, it was strategy, a multi-front approach to peace building. First, culture. In 1962, he founded the Little Angels, a Korean children's folk ballet troupe that toured the world, performing for presidents and war veterans. Korea at the time was known for war and poverty. These young dancers, however, in bright hanbok, changed that image. This was cultural diplomacy. Long before soft power was even a buzzword. Then came the Universal Ballet in 1984, which became one of Asia's premier companies, spreading beauty and tradition across ideological lines. Second, economics. The Tongil Group, spanning manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, publishing, and even tourism. Critics called it an empire, but look closer. Every venture has two goals: economic growth and interdependence. Factories that strengthened South Korea's defenses. Businesses that created North-South joint projects. Economy as diplomacy. Third, education. They built Sunwoo University, the Professors World Peace Academy, and Kaza International. Institutions designed to shape global thought during and after the Cold War. This was long-term thinking, planting trees they knew they would never sit under. Now let's zoom out, because the scale of their vision, especially under Dr. Han's leadership after 2012, is astonishing. She didn't slow down even after Reverend Moon's passing. She actually expanded everything. The Universal Peace Federation now holds global summits. The Women's Federation for World Peace operates in over 140 countries. She's spoken at the UN, at the US Capitol, organized online rallies of hope that drew millions during COVID. In 2020, a single unification rally gathered over 1 million participants. They established the Sunhawk Peace Prize, honoring unsung humanitarian heroes. They even launched initiatives to apply Korean reconciliation principles to the Middle East. And northeast of Seoul, they built Cheonpyeong Peace Village, a sprawling campus with a museum, a hospital, a seminary, and even a stadium, a living ecosystem for training peace builders. Here's the genius part. They built redundancy into peace itself. If diplomacy failed, culture kept ties alive. If government stalled, business carried on. If politics divided, religion and art reconnected. Peace made resilient by design. That's not idealism, that's system speaking. But let's be honest, this story isn't without controversy. The unification movement has faced serious criticism, from its theology to its organizational practices. Reverend Moon served time in the US in the 1980s. The mass weddings were ridiculed or feared by many. Former members have even shared painful stories. Those realities matter. However, acknowledging them doesn't erase Reverend Moon's achievements, because both truths can coexist. Reverend Moon can be divisive and still open diplomatic doors that politicians couldn't. Dr. Han can lead a complex organization and still fund a real humanitarian aid after tsunamis or wars. History is rarely clean. The mature view isn't to pick sides, it's to see the whole picture. So what was their goal? Strip away the headlines. What were they really after? They wanted to prove that enemies could become family, not metaphorically, literally. Reverend Moon's ideals of true love meant actual marriages between former enemies, Japanese and Korean, black and white, across faiths and nation. It meant a dictator shaking hands with his former prisoner. It meant war veterans honored by the children of those who they once fought for. Their method: connection through every channel possible. Make peace profitable through business. Make peace beautiful through art. Make peace credible through education. Make peace personal through family. Weave enough threads and hate becomes too entangled to sustain. Did it reunify Korea? Not yet. But did it shift the landscape? Absolutely. Pyonghwa Motors still exists to this very day. Global interfaith networks born from their efforts still meet to this day. Even the cultural power of modern Korea, from K-pop to cinema, was built in part of the groundwork of cultural diplomacy that started half a century ago. And here's the part worth remembering. While most governments swung between appeasement and aggression, Reverend Moon and Dr. Han built a third way, relentless connection. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't without cost, but it was one of the boldest attempts to bridge an impossible divide. So the real lesson here isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. Peace isn't built by saints or slogans, it's built by people willing to walk back into their prisons and shake hands with their jailer. It's built by those who understand that one conversation might change nothing, but 1,000 conversations across decades can change everything. Because culture outlasts politics, economic ties outlast ideologies, education outlasts war, and above all, love, when disciplined by strategy, can outlast hatred. That's what Reverend Sun Myung Moon and Dr. Hak Ja-han dedicated their lives to proving. And whether you agree with them or not, their legacy forces one undeniable question. If peace can be built like an empire, why aren't more of us trying?